What was I gonna say? Yeah. Anyways.
Something we haven't touched on, but that's been big news. I wanted to talk about the two very recent cop shootings. Not the one, I guess, that's happening right now in Dallas. The one with the two cops who everybody's saying. I honestly don't know a ton about the one in. I guess it was Minnesota, right?
I know the Alton Sterling one.
Yes, there's one in Minnesota.
The live stream one I don't know as well. The Sterling one, I've looked at that tape. I think it's tomorrow's vlog. I haven't edited it together yet, but I'm going to talk about it, which is something I don't normally do, like politics in my daily vlogs. And I just take the footage, I stabilize it, I look at it forward and backwards, and I'm like I'm not a cop. I don't have any special training in how they're supposed to handle these things, but I am a video editor, and I'm like, I can look at this better than like 99% of the population. I can stabilize it. I can go frame by frame, forwards, backwards. I mark the section where the cop says, I don't like what he says, but he says, if you fucking move, I swear to God, right? I'm like, all right, here's the part in the timeline where he's received his instruction not to move, and then this is the amount of moving he does after. But like I go through it all, and I've looked at the tape super carefully. Once they get the guy pinned and have him down, it's a pretty tough call. They tell him not to move, and he kind of does. It looks like he's trying to break his arm free. I feel like they made a huge mistake long before that, right? When they told the guy to get down, and he takes this like Jesus pose, right? It's a non-threatening pose. Maybe they could have worked with it, they didn't have to tackle and escalate. That's the thing that in these, and I don't hate all cops, by the way, but too many American cops will take a situation that on a stress level is like a 7 and turn it into a 10, right? They have to alpha the fuck out of whoever it is they're dealing with, when they could be like, hey man, let's handle this the right way. And I'm a little worried. So I know this guy. He was a detective for 16 years, or police detective, etc., in Germany. And he says their training is much different. They're highly valued on their ability to talk down a situation. Two guys are fighting, and this guy hit that guy, and that guy wants revenge. And he says, you know what? I agree with you, man. That guy is an asshole. You do have to get your revenge, but you got to do it the right way. We got to take that guy to court. I'm gonna throw him in jail, etc., etc. And once you can talk a guy off that ledge, it usually takes a whole new incident to bring him back on it. And they could have done that in this situation, and they didn't. They went for the tackle, and that going for the tackle and the guy's got a gun on his hip. They knew that was what they were called for. It was a minute before the shooting that this thing went terribly wrong. A second before the shooting, it might not have been so crazy. The guy was struggling after they told him not to move. He was. But a minute before that, like, why did you bring it there? That he wasn't. And by the way, in the cop's defense, if I say get down, and everyone knows you got a gun, right? The police were called for that reason, and of course the gun carrier knows he has a gun. If I say get down and you do this instead, I worry that you're keeping your options open. Right? Why are you doing that? Why, you're not putting your hands on the hood or anything. You're just like, I'm keeping my options open. I'm not disarming myself.
Well, that's the thing. These things are so incredibly complex, and I'm glad you ended on that note, because that's the part. First off, the reason I haven't even commented on it on Twitter in the last few days, I've been so freaking busy, as you guys know, when we were trying to coordinate this. I haven't had a minute to even pay attention to the news beyond just the Clinton thing, because I had to get a little something on that. So I haven't even been able to watch the tapes in a way that I could formulate a proper opinion. And also, everyone just watches a little tape. They immediately pick their side, and then they love their narrative, and they keep. And you can almost every time, no matter what the video shows, the people who always say one thing, and the people who always say the other thing always say the other thing. These situations are incredibly complex. We don't know exactly what happened right before. The guy had a gun. Also, I have no reason to believe that he deserved to die in any estimation, of course. But I don't envy a cop that has to be in that situation too, and I don't envy that person. It's just a shitty situation all around. And unfortunately, this is one of those things that it's become so hyper partisan that they make it seem like you're racist if you have any sympathies with the cop, and if you have any sympathies with the black person, you have no desire for law and order. And both those things just aren't true. So we got to try to get calmer heads to prevail on this, but I don't even know if it's possible.
Yeah, it's funny you said you pick a side, right? So I know a guy. You can see his arm was pinned under the policeman's leg, and he's doing this. And he's like, that's his what the fuck pose. You know, hey, what are you doing to me? Whereas in my head, like, it was pretty clear that he was trying to move. Yeah.
I see it from both sides.
Me too.
I feel and I think that any rational person has to. You can't just come at this like from. I feel like if maybe I had a cop in the family, I'd be like, hey, I know how this goes down. 9 times out of 10, they've got this or they've got that, and you're like, what do you mean by they? But I'm just looking at like what I have here, this little equation on the screen, and it looks like everybody's a douchebag. Surprise! It's the same thing that happened in the Trayvon Martin situation. You're like, I don't even want to give you my honest opinion because both guys are douchebags. Like nobody here was a nice guy. There was no innocent angel walking. There was no like guardian of the neighborhood like he's fucking Batman, Bruce Wayne over there. No, that's not the characters we're dealing with. We're dealing with two very flawed individuals, and those cops definitely overreacted. They escalated the situation, and it should be about de-escalation. They should walk up and say, hey, excuse me, we had a call about you, I believe. Sir, now don't touch it, but do you have a weapon on you? Let's start like that. Let's start like that. And then we don't end with, if you move, I swear to God, and then death. Do we know how it started? Do we know what that initial part of the conversation was? Because do we know that didn't happen? I honestly don't.
Here's what I do know. I know that the police came there because a homeless man called 911 and said, there's a guy here pulling a gun on people, right? I don't know if it's true. I don't know if he's a great character witness, etc. But that's what the 911 call said. And then the video picks up with the police telling the guy to get on the ground 3 or 4 times. And rather than do that, he does this. So I don't know how the conversation started, but that's the gap.
I can't imagine I saw on Reddit today the old thing from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when Jazzy Jeff is in court and he's supposed to give his testimony, and he's supposed to put his hand on the Bible and everything, but he's standing there like this. The judge goes, sir, you can put your hands down. They all got guns. Next thing I know, I'll get 6 warning shots in the back. And I'm just like, as a black man, like, I can just imagine seeing those 2 fucking cops walk up to you and just being like, here we fucking go. Jesus. Like it must be such a fear. Like, I don't like seeing police behind me because I've usually got a lot of guns in the car, and I know there's going to be a whole rigmarole about that, where I'm going to have to explain myself and show identification and prove things. And it's just like, oh, God, I hope I don't get pulled over. And in my case, I know that I'm leaving the situation with a well, that's a pretty good gun, boy. I wish I had me one of them. You mind if I shoot you sometime? That's how my encounter with the police almost always ends, with them asking if they can use one of my guns. This guy's lucky if he survives. That's what's in his head. If I'm a black man, I'm like, I just hope I survive this fucking pullover. Jesus. Fuck, I knew I should have fixed that tail light.
So it's been left out. Do people know his criminal history? Like, I know Kyle might.
Yeah, he had a history of like marijuana distribution, maybe. So it seems like he sold weed, and he had a weapons charge against him. But I don't know if it was a gun, knife, or...
Yeah. Just to clarify, we're still speaking about the individual from the gas
yeah.
station case. Okay.
Yeah, in the South.
He had one charge, the more recent one, where he was selling drugs. It might have been weed, I don't know. And he had possession of an illegal weapon. Again, I don't know what that is. That could have been a 5-inch knife for all I know. But he was selling drugs, and he had an illegal weapon. He spent a couple years in prison for that. Prior to that, it was sexual assault with carnal knowledge of a minor. I also don't know what that means, like
it could mean anything. The way that they like plead things down and stuff, though, because like he literally could have raped a child, but there wasn't enough evidence, or they didn't want to put the child through testifying in court or something like that, and it gets bumped down to something like that. So you never know.
Or he could have peed against the wall.
End of it. He could have been like that poor black guy from Green Mile, and he was just trying to do his best, and he got framed up, John Coffey, like. You never know. I really hate that like a group like Black Lives Matter will make the victim of one of these things be an angel instead of just coming and being 100% honest, being like, look at this flawed man who didn't deserve to die for what he did Friday night. That's what their message should be. But then on the other side, you've got the law enforcement and maybe the news media at large saying, look at this career criminal. Put down doing, he lived by the gun, he died by the gun. It's somewhere in the middle, and we never get to that. It's sad.
Yeah. My daughter, for what it's worth, agrees with Taylor that selling CDs was probably not the thing he was really doing.
That's because your daughter hasn't been in many urban areas or driven a car before by herself. When you go
Same
to
with
Atlanta,
Taylor?
you go to, maybe not. When I go to a gas station in Atlanta, I'm constantly being hit up to buy CDs. It's like, hey man, they're trying to get their rap career started. It's like, this is my album. This is me rapping. We put this together with GarageBand. You know, my little cousin, he does in mixes, and they're always trying to sell me this CD for X amount of dollars. And I'll just be like, look, man, I don't want to buy music in a parking lot. And it's not like they're going like, it's not really music, if you know what I mean. There's a little something special in this cassette.
I mean,
it's not that.
Maybe, I mean, I have driven around urban areas plenty. I mean, maybe St. Louis, where I
believe
live,
you
is
have.
more different than Atlanta, but selling CDs is usually not selling CDs, if you know what I mean. When it's 2016 and it's late
You're
at night.
telling me I could have gotten drugs from all of those CD salesmen?
I once tried to buy crack and the guy gave me a CD. It was seriously messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the drug trade, but some people say that the CD is like a poker chip. It's a token that you exchange for drugs, right?
Well,
the way that some people would say it is that you go somewhere, you buy a CD, then you take the CD to someone else in a different corner somewhere to keep it separate, and then you would trade that for drugs directly. That's what some people would say, and that absolutely does happen. I don't know if it's just with CDs, but at the same time, Kyle's right. There are people who will just hit you up to try and sell you shit sometimes downtown. Maybe it's way more common in Atlanta than St. Louis, because I don't see it here ever.
And the guy's got drug dealer priors. Just a thing.
I believe he was a
regardless,
drug
though,
dealer,
the point should be made that Kyle was saying that even if he was selling crack every day right there, 8 hours a day, like it was a job at fucking Subway, that still doesn't... That shouldn't be used as ammunition to justify his killing.
No,
I don't even think he should be roughed up.
That's not how I'm using it.
Yeah, of course not.
That's not how I'm using it. How I'm using it is I'm just, and maybe this is inappropriate, trying to get into a mind of a guy who's staring down his third felony conviction, right? He's been to jail. He's served years in jail twice already, right? So it's not like he spent overnight in jail, right? You know, I forget the time spans, but it was like, I'm making it up, like 4 years and 4 years again. That's going to be close. And so now he's looking at another like term in prison, his third felony, and he might be, you know, like feeling more desperate than like, you know, a regular person would.
Yeah, he might struggle a little extra, and so use the 9mm. I guess I hated that. I hate it when like he's not allowed to like struggle a little bit while you're pinning him to the ground painfully. It's like I don't know if anybody here's ever been like, you know what jujitsu's like when someone's like pinning you and putting force in one area.
It's awful.
Now we're on concrete now, and there's two guys, and weight is being applied in places where it shouldn't. It's painful and it hurts, and you're just trying to get comfortable and make the pain stop, or at least decrease.
Sure. So I'm not, in no way am I defending this man's death. However, if cops tell you to get down and you have a gun and you don't, they are going to, this is just a fact, this is not a judgment call, they are going to have to apply pressure on you that is going to be uncomfortable. So I get what your point is, except it's like, this is the danger of this whole conversation, is that we don't know exactly what led up to this, and maybe there is more information out there that we don't know, but most of the people in the media, they're probably saying pretty much the same things, and everyone's just jumping in and picking their side. And it's like, look, at the end of the day, I suspect, but again, I could be wrong, and I don't know exactly what these cops' ambitions were, but I suspect if, when they had approached him and said, you know, whatever they said, you know, put your hands behind your back and that's it, that he wouldn't be dead. That is in no way a defense of what happened, other than when a cop tells you to do something, if you don't do it, even if it's wrong, even if you've done nothing wrong, if you don't do it, you could get hurt or killed. And that would stand for all of us. Now, look, they might treat us as white people different, a good percentage of them. We don't know what that percentage is. But if you don't listen to a cop's orders, something bad probably is going to happen.
Yeah. And usually I think the people who argue like, oh, but you shouldn't have to do that. It shouldn't be, you know, you should never be in that situation because it's immoral on the cop's behalf. Like, there are a lot of people who argue from like like an ought standpoint to where how the world ought to work and how it ought to be, and what justice would be in an ideal world, instead of saying like I'm sorry, we can't use this pie in the sky standard. You kind of just have to accept these are people, they're cops, they're flawed. You have to treat them like they could potentially go off because they could.
That doesn't discount that some of them are looking to get into a fight. I was pulled over about 6 months ago. I literally had one glass of wine at about 7 o'clock at a friend's, and I drove home. I had to drive 5 minutes. I was pulled over in front of my house looking for parking with one glass of wine in me. The guy, he got in my face with a flashlight. Did you have any drinks? I said I had one glass of wine. He got me out. He had a young cop with him, so he was clearly training this guy. So he was like in his late 50s probably, training this young guy, and I could see he was really trying to assert himself and show this guy how you do it and everything. Had me get out, had me touch my nose and do all that stuff. I'm a little dyslexic, by the way, so when he had me, like, at one point I had to close my eyes and like stand on one foot and do something, like, it's not my thing. It's not my thing. But anyway, I was also extremely nervous because I haven't been pulled over in many years. Haven't had that much experience with cops, fortunately, negative experience, that is. And I guess had I said one thing the wrong way, if I had said, wait, I'm parking in front of my house, what the fuck, man, whatever, who knows, that could have escalated really quickly. And if I had fought whatever, and I'm not saying this has anything to do with this specific case, obviously, but I'm just saying that, yes, there could be a bad cop in that would have looked at a guy like me and if I had given him one bit of guff, you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, there's a lot of things at play here, and we got to try to have honest discussions about it, which we're doing here.
I'm with you. And even though I think I've argued the other side of this most of the night, there is a little part of me that doesn't like to completely surrender his dignity when the police come around. Like, I've been pulled over a couple of years ago or something. My registration was out of date, and I've got to hand over my license and my concealed carry permit, and my hands are on the wheel. They're on the wheel because I want him like, it's telling him a lot about me. I have a legal gun that says a thing. My hands are on the steering wheel. It's unnatural, like 10 and 2 when you're parked, but I'm showing him that I'm keeping them there for him. And he asked me where the gun is, and I'm like, I'm going to point with my elbow. One of those deals. And it's not just telling him where the gun is. I'm telling him I'm compliant. But like, there is a level where, like, I don't know, like, there are police instructions that they might take that kind of surrender my dignity. If I was, for example, just walking and he wants me to spread him and put him against the wall or get on the ground, I might feel like, what? I am just walking here. I couldn't be more innocent. I don't think I should be laying on the ground. And then what do? Like,
Well, he's slow on the draw, so you do what you have to, Woody.
If I'm walking as innocently as can be and he's telling me to put my nose on a dirty sidewalk.
Yeah, nobody wants that. That's bullshit. Yeah. And I don't want to change topics too much, but you should